Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to work on neck mobility. Now, interesting thing about neck mobility is the neck is not isolated from the rest of the spine. So anytime working neck mobility, I want to make sure that we are working full spinal mobility. One of the traps that I find with neck mobility is the neck is a really good area for the body to create tension and compensation to help with stabilizing other areas of the body where we might be limited in stability. So if we focus on loosening up the neck without working the full spine mobility and stability of the rest of the spine, what tends to happen is we feel a little bit looser, but then it just cranks right back down. And then really the bigger problem with that is any time that we do that repeatedly, we go after a area of the body that is a prime area for compensation, stability compensation, and we mobilize it without addressing the rest of the body, the nervous system will kind of take that as a bit of an attack, and it will just crank that area down tighter and tighter. So the more you mobilize it in isolation without addressing the rest of the spine, tends to make the very symptoms you're trying to get relief from worse over time. So you get temporary symptomatic relief because you do some mobility, but over time, that tension just gets worse and worse. So I want to address that by looking at how we do full spinal mobility. So in today's session, we're going to get into mobilizing the spine. And generally, I like focusing on the neck last, especially if the neck is the problem source. I don't want to start at the neck. I want to come to the neck after already getting some level of mobility through the rest of the spine. So, with all that, let's get started. So the first place we're going to start is working with the shoulders. One of the things I like to remind people is that where does your neck end and your shoulders begin? Where do your shoulders end and your neck begins? The same muscles that are neck muscles are also shoulder muscles. They're also breathing muscles. So first place I want to work on is mobilizing the shoulders a little bit to get the shoulders kind of out of that tension game with the neck. And so we're going to start with our staff. Getting a nice grip, shoulder width grip on the staff is where I want to imagine we're trying to bend the staff. I want to have tension in the staff. I want that tension to come through spiraling of the elbows. So we're trying to bend the staff at our wrists, bend the staff through the elbows. So those elbows should be spiraling up towards the ceiling. And then trying to bend the staff through our shoulder blades, but our shoulder blades are going to be packing down onto our low back, like they're moving into our hip pockets. I want to keep that tension throughout our shoulder mobility. We're going to start with the staff in front. Nice standing position. We're going to get into our nice crocodile breath. Breathing into our abdominal wall. I want to feel that breath moving into the belly, out through the side body, and into the low back space. And nice slow inhale breath, nice slow exhale breath. We're going to inhale in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as we exhale, feel that belly button draw up and into your spine so that as you get into your inhale breath, you are inhaling and inflating that crocodile or that balloon breath. With each exhale, keep that tension in the staff, but make sure that your shoulders are not starting to shrug up. I want to keep the shoulders soft towards the ground. The tension is coming because we're trying to bend or break that staff in two. Now, as we get synced into that inhale and exhale, we're going to play with some pelvic tilts. On the inhale, allow the pelvis to tilt forward so that we get a little bit of sway in the back. That belly starts to open up. That breath will move a little bit more to the front. On the exhale, as we draw that navel in, we're now scooping that pelvis. Feeling maybe you get a little stretch in the front of the hips. You should start to feel that core tighten up just a little bit. Inhale, moving into that nice sway back. Exhale, feeling that scoop. The more we're able to get into that scoop, you should start to notice your glutes tighten up in the rear. I want to pay attention to any tension in this low back. On the inhale, I want to avoid any pinch or pain in the low back. On the exhale, I want to avoid pain, but I also want to notice, is there a little bit of a stretch? If there's stretch and tension in this low back area, that is going to have a relationship with the tension in your neck. So I want to start to move and play with this area. See if we can mobilize it, getting some relief in that tension. On the next inhale, as we exhale, drawing the navel in, we're now going to start to bring elbows up. We're exploring how far can we bring arms up, seeing how close can we get our elbows to our ears without extending our back. So I don't want to be in this rib out, sway back position at the top. I want to be scooped, tucked as I'm bringing that elbow back, seeing how far can we go without pain. Inhale, shoulders go forward as we bring that sway into the back. Exhale, draw the navel in, scoop, and see how far can you pull those elbows towards the ears. Want to make sure that we are not moving into pain in the shoulders or in the back. And we'll get a good 10 slow reps. With each one, I want to feel that exhale, scoop, rib cage draws down. How far can we squeeze into it without pain? Can we start to mobilize the shoulders and get a little bit more range out of this movement? After 10, we're going to move the staff to behind the body. Palms are facing back away from the body, but we're still bending the staff. And again, I want to bend that staff away from the body. So as we bend that staff, the elbows are still spiraling forward, and that should roll those shoulder blades down and back. I want to avoid having shoulder blades rounded forward here. I want to feel those nice open chest. Everything else will be the same with our breath. Breathing into that crocodile breath. On the exhale, as we draw that navel in, we're very lightly lifting elbows up towards the ceiling. Again, not pushing into pain, seeing how far can we get smoothly, non-painfully. Inhale, let the shoulders drop as you fill up that crocodile breath. Exhale, lift. And as I'm exhaling and lift, I am continuing to actively bend the bar or the staff, spiraling the elbows. The more you get that spiraled, like you're trying to bend it actively, you should get a little bit more opening up through the front of the chest and sternum. After 10, we're going to flip our palms so they're now facing forward. We're still trying to bend the staff away from the body. Everything else is going to be exactly the same. Nice inhale, get a sway in the back. Exhale, navel in as we scoop, lifting elbows up towards the ceiling as we spiral those elbow pits out and away like we're trying to bend or break the staff away from the body. And with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit higher with the elbows without moving into pain or stress. On this one, kind of notice if there's a difference in the front area of one shoulder compared to the other shoulder. Once we get to 10, we can now get a little bit of a bend at the hips. Everything else is the same. This may give you a little bit more range that you can explore with the shoulders. Inhale as we drop. Exhale as we lift and squeeze into it. Now, coming back to noticing the tension in the shoulders. When we get into our neck mobility, more than likely, whatever shoulder is tighter is going to be the same side of the neck that's tighter. That's part of the reason I want to pay attention to working on the shoulders first. So we're just going to keep that awareness to pay attention to. What are the connections between shoulders and neck when it comes to tension? We're going to set the staff down to the side, and now we're going to get into some bowls of soup, doing some arm spirals. Arms are at our side, hands are spread wide, turning palms up towards the ceiling as high as you can. From here, we're going to shrug our shoulders up, let them round forward, spiral the hands so that the palms are now spiraling down towards the floor and lightly reaching forward. I want to get a nice arch through the upper back. At the same time, we're exhaling and scooping so that we get that nice rounded low back with a rounded upper back. On the inhale, we're going to shrug up as we roll our palms back up towards the ceiling, and then feel those shoulder blades drop. On the inhale, exhale, shrug, round, reach forward, inhale, shrug, spiral palms up, nice and tall. With each one, I want to see how rounded we can get through that low back and upper back together. Can you feel that nice opening stretch across the upper back between the shoulder blades? Can you get a little bit of that low back mobility? On the inhale, as we feel those shoulder blades drop down, spiraling the palms up, can we bring that breath up into our upper chest around the clavicle area? Once we get through 10, we're now going to see how high can we bring those arms. So palms are still spread wide, pointing up towards the ceiling. If you have any kind of impingement pain, I don't want to move up into that pain. So we're seeing how high can we elevate the arms. If we can bring them up to shoulder height, great. If they need to be a little bit low because it's a little pinchy, that's fine. From here, we're going to go one side at a time. We're spiraling through one arm, seeing how far can we get that spiral just up to the shoulder socket. I don't want to get into the rounding of the shoulders just yet. And then we're going to open that palm back up to the ceiling and do the same thing on the other side. Exhale as you spiral internally. Inhale as you spiral back up. Exhale as you go to the other side. Keep those hands spread wide throughout the spiral. That's going to help spread the tension through the fascia so you'll get a greater mobility stretch at the shoulder joint. Notice the difference, left side to right side. Is one side smoother? Is one side clunkier or even a little grindy? I want to make sure we're not moving into pain. We're now going to start to move both sides at the same time. So as I spiral one side internally, I'm spiraling the other side open up towards the ceiling. And this is where we can start to let that shoulder round forward, getting a little bit of movement into that upper spine. I also want to imagine that we are stretchy, and as we're spiraling, we're reaching out to the walls at our side. See, almost like we're trying to create gapping space in the joint of the shoulder itself by reaching and pulling those bones out of that socket. Good. Go ahead and shake the arms out, and we're now going to come all the way down to the floor onto our back. And now we're going to get into some our baby rolls. We're getting into baby rolls. I want to make sure that there's no pain in the spine. So we have to start very, very slowly. We're going to do four different positions or four different movements in our baby roll stretch. So legs are going to be about shoulder width apart. Try to keep your toes pointed straight up to the ceiling. And we're going to lightly press our heels into the floor. So I want to feel some downward pressure through both heels, and I want to try to maintain even pressure. Our arms are coming up into a nice Y position. Now, if you have stiffness in the shoulders and it's difficult to get the elbows softly on the floor, it's okay to bring the arms a little lower down to where you feel them rest. From here, we're reaching with our arms. And so again, I want to go slow with our breath. So nice inhale breath into our crocodile. Exhale, we're lifting our head up and we are looking where we are reaching. When I'm going to reach out to the fingers of my other hand that are already out in place, I want to keep both heels in contact with the ground. Inhale, coming all the way back to the floor, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale, reaching to the other side. Again, lifting the head. My eyes are looking to see where I am reaching to as I reach my fingers to my hand. Inhale, brings it all the way back. We're starting with a small range to make sure this is not painful. And with each one, we can slowly start to move a little further into it. Again, as long as it's not painful, especially in the low back. Inhale as we come to center. Exhale as we reach. Now, as we're getting into these reaches and we're starting to get a little bit more extended, I want to really feel stretchy, like I'm trying to extend the fingers out. I'm keeping both heels in contact with the floor. I want to pay attention. Does one heel want to lift up? Does one heel want to press harder than the other? Is it different when I reach with my right hand or with my left hand? Again, all of these little imbalances that we're paying attention to are going to be relevant to what's going on in our neck. So as we're starting to feel a little bit more loose and limber with this, we're now going to get a nice reach, and I want to reach and hold. I don't want to reach to full tension. I want to reach to kind of a light tension. Spread those hands, and we're going to do a very gentle, slow bowl of soup with this hand. I want to go gentle because we have this shoulder in tension, and I want to make sure it's not painful. So we're doing that nice, we'll do 3 to 5 little spirals, turning the palm up to the ceiling in one direction, and then turning it up to the ceiling in the other direction. See if you can have that nice reach, that stretch reach, like you're a stretchy piece of rubber extending away as you're spiraling. As you're doing this, you can also kind of start to reach through the toes in order to create that tension all the way through from fingertip to toe tip. After 3 to 5, we'll bring that back down, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Again, I want to find light tension, not heavy tension. Spread the hands. Keep that breath in and out as we spiral through that shoulder. Starting slow to make sure it is not painful. And then as we feel it opening up, we're getting stretchy, we're really reaching through the fingertips, and we're starting to reach through the toe tips at the same time. We'll bring the hands back down to the floor, and now we're going to start moving from our feet. So arms are still in the same position. We're going to lift a leg, and I want to lift it up high, and we're going to reach that leg across our body as if we're going to place it up on a shelf or on a couch. Hip obviously has to lift up off the floor. And as I reach, I kind of want to look to where I'm reaching towards, so my head must turn, and this reach is going to slowly lift my shoulder blade off the floor. But I want to see if I can keep some contact with the back of my hand. Inhale, we're going to bring that leg all the way back. On our exhale, we're lifting the other leg and reaching it across like we're trying to set it up onto a shelf. Again, shoulders going to come off the ground lightly, and our eyes are following our toes to see where we are reaching towards. Going back and forth. As you get into it, we can start to reach and extend a little bit more and a little bit more. As I reach through those fingertips or toe tips, so we're allowing that shoulder to come up, but I want to also reach away through the fingertips, creating that nice tension from fingertip to toe tip. Notice if there's any discomfort or tightness in one shoulder compared to the other shoulder, especially as you reach out and extend. What do you feel across the front of that shoulder into the chest on the right side? Is it different than what it feels like on the left side? And one last thing we can do with this one before we flip over. On the next reach, as you reach with your feet, keep reaching and allow the hand to come off the floor as long as this is not painful. I want to make sure it's not painful. Allow the hand to come off the floor. I want to be in light tension. I don't want to be in extreme reach here. And we can do a bowl of soup, spreading the hands, and again, very slowly spiraling that palm, making sure it is not painful in the shoulder joint, seeing if we can get some smooth mobility movement into that shoulder region. Again, the more we can kind of get that shoulder to mobilize with good stability, the more it will help free up our neck. Doing the same thing to the other side, getting that nice reach, allowing that hand to come off the floor a little bit. Light tension, not heavy tension. Nice spread hand. And my left shoulder is my sensitive shoulder, so I have to go a little bit slower, especially on internal. As I spiral that thumb internally, that gets into a range of motion that's really difficult on my left shoulder compared to my right. We'll bring the legs, feet back down to the floor, and we're now going to flip over onto our belly. And we're going to bring our arms straight up overhead. Palms are down. So on this one, I want to keep elbows as tight to the ears as possible. I do not want the arm to move away from the body. This gets us into a lot of shoulder mobility without getting into our spine. And I want to address our spine first. So keep those palms spread, and we're going to lift the elbow like you're reaching the elbow up to the ceiling, and I want that elbow to graze our ear. So as we lift, we're reaching, keeping it tight to the ear, maybe not graze the ear, because we're also going to turn our head and let our eyes follow where we are moving to. As I lift, it's going to roll my shoulders over as if I'm going all the way onto my back. As I roll, my knee is going to slide up and stay in contact with the floor. So let me do this on the other side. So again, as I lift, elbow stays tight to the ear. My eyes are following where I'm reaching up to, lifting off the floor. That knee is going to stay in contact and slide up, and I'm seeing how far can I roll without that knee coming up and without going into pain. Inhale, slides the knee back down as I come back to my starting position. Exhale, takes me to the other side. Let that knee slide up, keeping it in light contact with the floor. We're seeing how close can we get to rolling all the way onto our back without losing contact with that knee and without going into pain. Again, I want to keep that elbow close to the ear. As I spiral, that arm should not be straight up to the ceiling. It's still tight to my ear as I reach and roll. As we get to 5 or 10 reps, on the next one, as you reach and roll, we're going to go to a kind of light tension. We're not going to go to the fullest extent of this range. And from here, we can do our bowls of soup again. Spread hands, spiraling through that elbow and that arm. Again, my eyes are following my fingertips. As I go through the spirals, I want to see how does this feel again through that shoulder. Do I have good, smooth rotation in that shoulder joint? And then same thing to the other side. Finding light tension, eyes are following fingertips, and then we can slowly go into our bowl of soup on that side. Notice how the left shoulder moves compared to the right shoulder. Is one side a little clunkier, a little gristly, a little grindy? Is it painful? If it is painful, then we need to back off. I do not want to move into pain on the shoulders in these positions. Bringing the arms back down, coming back to belly. We're now going to move palms straight out to the side with the palms down. We're going to get into kind of the scorpion version of the baby roll, but we're going to start with just some simple knee lifts. So we're going to bend one knee, pull the foot like you're trying to touch your toes to your knees. So I want to be very actively with the top of the foot pulling down towards the shin. And from here, we're going to see if we can reach our heel up to the ceiling like we're trying to touch the ceiling. And then we're going to let it back down, and we're going to switch to the other side. As I bring that foot up, I'm on inhale. As I lift my heel, I am exhaling. Inhaling as I bring it back down, going to the other side, ready to exhale as I lift the other side. Now, one thing I want to watch out for is the opposite hip. I want to keep the opposite front of the opposite hip in contact with the floor. As I lift that heel up, as I lift my right heel, I don't want to push through my left knee to where it lifts my left hip off the ground. I don't want this space in here. So I want to make sure that that is staying rested. I'm not pushing through that opposite knee. I'm just lifting one heel. This will all be engagement through that glute. Inhale as we bring it down, switching to the other side. I want to make sure that this is not painful. If this is painful, then we need to back off. This one is a good one for if it's painful, schedule a session with me and let's talk about what's going on in your body. If this is not painful, and you have pretty good lift and it feels, the low back feels fairly mobile, the next thing we can do is add a little bit of rotation in the spine. So as you lift that knee, we're now going to reach that heel like you're trying to touch your opposite shoulder. You're reaching up, letting it rotate over, angling like you're trying to reach that heel to your shoulder, bringing it back down, swinging it over to the other side. This is where we get into that scorpion. Again, I want to make sure we are not moving into pain. This needs to be non-painful. If there's any level of pain on these movements, I want you to back up, back off. You're going too fast, too far, and too forcefully. So we need to slow it down and find the non-painful range of motion. Good. All right. So now we're going to come up into our quadruped position. So spreading fingers nice and wide, grounding the palms. I want to have the toes tucked underneath as well. And we're going to start with some arm spirals from this position. So I want to focus on elbows. We're going to spiral the elbows so that they're turning as far forward towards your head as they can go. And then we're going to internally spiral them and see how far towards your feet can you get them to go. We're inhaling as the elbows spiral forward. We're exhaling as the elbows spiral back towards your feet. And we're going to add another layer here with the shoulders. As you internally spiral and exhale, start to push so that you get that nice spread between the shoulder blades. Feel that stretch between the shoulder blades. We're also exhaling and drawing that navel in and scooping so that we're starting to get a little that stretch into the low back. Inhale, draws the breath back into the belly so the pelvis will tilt down to the floor. Elbow pits are spiraling forward. Feel the chest kind of drop to the floor. Really want to feel those shoulder blades packing down and back, and you should notice the chest naturally drops. Exhale, scoop and spiral. See if you can feel that simultaneous stretch through the low back and the shoulders at the same time. As we're getting into it further and further, as we exhale and scoop, I also want to feel that movement go over the top of the head. And we're going to see if we can imagine we're trying to touch our tailbone to our forehead at this imaginary point in the middle. Can you feel stretch from the base of the skull all the way down into that low back area? Again, making sure we are not moving into pain. This should not be a painful range of motion. If there is any pain within it, then you need to back off a little bit. Move only within the range that is non-painful. And if this is something that is painful and difficult to do without pain, then schedule a consultation with me, please. Good. We're now going to switch into our inverted position. Our V-sit. I want to get nice and wide in our legs, as wide as you comfortably can. Actively reaching the knees down into the floor. Actively pulling the tops of the foot back towards the shin, like you're trying to fold your foot backwards. Hands are coming down, grounding outside of the hips. I want to reach through those palms, getting nice and tall through the spine. And we're going to start with those same arm spirals we just did in our quadruped. Feel those shoulder blades or those elbow pits spiral out and away. Then let them spiral in as we exhale. As we spiral out, we are inhaling, and notice that natural pack of the shoulders. The shoulder blades are naturally drawing down and back, and I want to feel that nice lift of the sternum as we inhale. And we're specifically trying to bring that inhale breath into this upper chest area. Exhale, let the shoulders round. We can also get a little rounding in the lower back with that scoop of the pelvis. And then inhale gets us nice and tall as we externally spiral out. This is another great place to notice that difference between the left shoulder and the right shoulder. Now, on the next inhale, as we're spiraling out, I want to stay tall. Keep that external spiral in the elbow pits. Feel those shoulder blades sliding down your rib cage to the floor, and I want to maintain this position as long as we can. If you need to take rest and breaks, rolling the wrists out, getting a little movement and flow back into the shoulder, and then come back into the movement, that is fine, especially if it's becoming uncomfortable. I don't want it to be painful. But from this nice packed shoulder, external spiraled position, we're going to start getting into our neck mobility now. We're going to start by simply checking our blind spots. Looking over the right shoulder nice and slowly as we exhale. Inhale as we come to center, and then exhale as we go to the other side. Notice if one side feels tighter than the other side. And again, let's relate that to which shoulder felt tighter. My left shoulder, I had some tightness and discomfort, especially, well, really with everything, but especially in the baby rolls. When I turn my head to the left, it's a little tighter. My left shoulder and my left neck are kind of my chronic areas for tension. So I'm all constantly working on them to maintain as much mobility and stability in them as possible. As we're reaching and looking over the shoulder, I want to see how far can we get the chin, the end of your chin, over the edge or crest of your shoulder. And the reason for that is I don't want the forehead to turn and reach to where we're rotating and tilting at our shoulder. I want to keep that head nice and tall so that we're really reaching from our chin, and that'll get us a little bit of deeper mobility into that neck. As that starts to kind of loosen up and mobilize a little bit, we're now going to get into our tilt and lift. So I want to lightly tilt, letting my ear move towards my shoulder, but I'm not trying to touch my shoulder. So this is not a deep tilt, very light tilt. Then opposite side, we're lifting as if we're trying to touch the ceiling with our ear, or imagining there's a piece of string pulling us up so that we get into a nice little light stretch through the side front of the neck. We're inhale as we're tall. We exhale as we tilt and lift. Inhale as we bring it back to tall, and then exhale as we switch to the other side. Now, as you're getting into this, as you lift through that ear, you can also lightly ground and press through the same side shoulder. And as you're doing so, apply a little bit of that external spiral through the elbow. Let the elbow pits roll out and away as you're pressing down, as you're lifting up through the ear. How does this feel? Left side compared to right side. Good. Next, we're going to get into our glide. So our glide is moving. Cheekbones should stay parallel. I want the cheekbones to be on the same level. I don't want the head to tilt to where one cheekbone gets higher than the other. I also want the face to stay forward. So I don't want us to rotate. So I want to avoid tilt or rotate, trying to move to one side or the other. From here, we're simply gliding, feeling that the head slide towards one shoulder. Inhale as we bring it back to center, and then feel it glide towards the other shoulder. This movement's a lot easier to do in front of a mirror or maybe in front of the camera so that you can see whether you're tilting, whether you're getting some rotation. The other thing I want to pay attention to is moving at the shoulders. It's real easy to get the shoulders involved trying to move that neck. If that neck doesn't glide, that is a function of our movement that is missing, and that's important. We want to work on this. This is an important movement to get some level of even glide side to side. Nice exhale as we glide to one side. Inhale back to center. Exhale as we glide to the other side. Then the last for the neck mobility in this position is going to be rolls. We're going to start with very shallow neck rolls. Lightly let the head drop down. I don't want to touch the chin to the chest to start with. From here, we're going to let the head, our right ear reach to our right shoulder. This is a little bit deeper than we just were, but again, not reaching all the way. And then our gaze comes up to the ceiling lightly, and then left ear to the left shoulder, and then bringing chin back down to the chest. And then I want to reverse directions and do the same thing in the other direction. Left ear to the left shoulder, gaze up to the ceiling, and then right ear to the right shoulder. And then chin back down to chest. I want to make sure that this is not painful. If this is painful, then you're going too deep into your neck roll. If you're feeling crepitus, like some crunchiness in the neck, as long as it is not painful, I am okay with going into that crunchiness. I kind of want to think about, like, can we de-crackle the crackle? If it's like real crackly in there, can we get that crackle to kind of smooth out a little bit? Again, as long as it is not painful. As you're getting into these rolls, we can start to get a little deeper and a little deeper as long as we're not moving into pain. And again, I want to make sure our shoulders are also still external, elbows are externally spiraled, shoulder blades are packed down and back. I want to watch out for shoulders wanting to kind of shrug up as we get into that side of our neck roll, because it means we're not actually getting into the neck so much, that shoulder is getting in the way. Notice if one side of the neck feels a little bit more noticeably tight than the other. Again, for me, it's that left side. All right, so take a little break on the shoulders and the arms. We're going to come right back into them, but now we're going to do a little bit of work into the hips. So reground palms, spiral those elbows out and away, nice tall chest. And now we're going to do some bowls of soup through our legs, largely focusing on the kneecaps. So again, knees are actively reaching down, feet are pulling back actively. Your quads should be a little bit engaged just from the position that you're in. We're now going to spiral like we're trying to touch the kneecaps to the floor, to the outside of the body. And then we're spiraling kneecaps in like we're trying to touch the floor on the inside of the body. We're inhaling when we come to center. Exhale as you spiral out and away. Inhale as we come to center, and exhale as you spiral in. Notice how far are you able to spiral the left kneecap compared to the right kneecap. How far do they go, and how does it feel? Does one side move more or less? Do you have more range of motion on the right side or the left side? And then a separate question is, which side feels tighter? And the interesting thing here is the side that feels tighter may not be the side that moves less. It might be the side that moves more. So it'll be an interesting thing, and you can kind of tell me in the comments if you found it like that to be an interesting discovery, that the side that felt tighter, that felt less mobile, actually had more mobility to it. We're going to come back to center. We're going to keep those legs active, but now we're going to bring our weight off the floor. So I'm still actively reaching down through the knees, actively pulling those feet back. Now we're getting into our breath and fold. So as we exhale, both hands are going to reach nice and even forward. Inhale is going to bring us all the way back. And this is where I want to imagine that we're we're the ocean, we're moving up a beach on the exhale, and then receding back on the inhale. And with each one, we're seeing if we can move a little further into it without pain. without stress. How does this feel on the back of the legs, hamstrings, behind the knees, down into the calves? How does it feel in the low back? Does one side feel a little tighter than the other? As we get a good number going straight forward, then we can start to work a little bit side to side, reaching out towards one heel, bringing it all the way back, and then reaching out to the other heel. Now, when we reach side to side, I want to keep the hands square with the chest, and I want to reach them even so that I'm getting an even stretch through that low back space. How does this feel when you reach to the left side compared to the right side? Is one side a little tighter, a little more restrictive? Are you not able to go as far? I have more mobility to my right side. I have less mobility, and it feels tighter when I reach to the right side. I feel it in the left side. I feel it in my right side low back as well as the left hamstring. So there is a relationship between that right side low back and that hamstring on the left side. Opposite sides of the body that are working together in order to restrict movement. Those are important relationships to take notice of. Good. All right. So now we're going to get into shin box. And we're going to do a little bit of isolated neck mobility in our shin box position. So I am in my left side shin box. Actually, I'm going to bring neck mobility in last, I think. So left side shin box, left palm is grounded down to the floor, spiraling out that elbow out and away, feeling that shoulder blade pack, nice tall chest. I want to be really solid through this side of the body. Most of my weight I want on that left side hip. I want that left knee on the floor. I don't want it off the floor. I don't want to sit back trying to keep my both hips on the floor to where that knee lifts up. I want to shift my weight over so that knee stays down. The first thing we're going to be working on is this back hip. And we're going to see if we can reach to the floor with that back hip without shifting our weight back and having that knee lift up. So I need that knee staying on the floor. We're seeing how close can we move that back hip. Can it touch the floor? How close to the floor can it get? And that's on our inhale breath. On our exhale breath, we're lifting that hip off the floor and we're reaching it forward. By keeping our weight on the opposite side, this hip should be free to move. And so as we move it forward, we're also scooping that tailbone into it, drawing the navel in on our exhale. Inhale, reaches that back hip. Back, again, without shifting our weight off the opposite side. Exhale, navel in, reach forward, scoop. Can you feel that stretch through the front of the hip? Can you start to feel that glute tighten up in the rear? And how much range of motion? How far is that hip traveling from back to front? Get that really clear so that when we're going to move to the other side and we're going to do the same thing, we can have a good sense of comparison. So palm grounded to the floor, elbow spiraled out and away, nice packed shoulder, sternum lifted, weight is over that side hip. That knee should be touching the floor, not lifted up. Inhale, we're reaching that back hip towards the floor without shifting our weight back. Exhale, reaching it forward, and as we reach, drawing the navel in and trying to scoop our tailbone into it so that we get into a little bit of stretch through the front of the hip. Inhale, reach to the floor. Exhale, lift, scoop forward. How does this side feel compared to the other side? Is it tighter, more restricted? Is the range of motion smaller? How far back are you able to go? If you're able to touch the hips on one side to the floor, can you do it on the other side, or does one side stay a little elevated? And is that range of motion a little bit more restricted? Do you have more range of motion moving forward, or do you have more range of motion moving back? Or more importantly, where do you have less range of motion? Those are the areas that I really want to pay attention to. We'll go ahead and bring that back across to the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing for 3 to 5 reps, and then we're going to add in our reach with rotation. So grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Weight is on one side, opposite side is less weight. Inhale, let that hip drop. Exhale, scoop into it. Generally, going into this a second time, you'll have a little bit more mobility. It'll feel a little bit smoother the second time around. And on the third or fifth one, as we exhale and scoop, I want to lock in that hip. Lock it into that scoop. And now your free hand reaches through the knee that's in front, seeing how far can you reach through that hand, keeping that back knee pressed, scooped hip. How far can you get from your knee to your fingertips? Inhale brings it all the way back in, drop of that hip. Exhale, lift the hip, scoop, lock that hip in first, and then reach across. And with each one, we're seeing if we can reach a little further without moving our shoulders forward. How far can you spiral, rotating through the spine to get the fingers to go further? I don't want to lunge forward with my shoulders. That should get a nice stretch through the hip, into the low back, even up into the shoulders. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall sternum, weight is shifted over to one side. We're starting with just inhale with the hip, exhale, scoop for 3 to 5 reps before we add in the reach with rotation. And again, second time around, this should move a little bit better, a little bit smoother, maybe a little bit improved range of motion. And that's very true for me. This left hip is always my tighter hip. It feels a little more mobile the second time. After 3 to 5, as we exhale, we're scooping, lock in that hip, and then adding that reach. Hand reaches through that knee. Oh, and this side's much tighter. Inhale brings it all the way back. Exhale, scoop, lock that hip in first, then add that reach with rotation. See how far can we start to move that from the fingertips from that back knee without lunging forward at the shoulders. All spiral through the spine, getting into that locked hip, spiral. This should feel good and juicy. If it feels stressful, if it feels painful, then I want you to back off. Schedule a session with me. All of these movements really need to be in the good and juicy realm. When we move in here, this is our practice. This is our movement practice. The world is the game. We are practicing in here for a successful game. If it is painful in our practice, it will be painful in the game. If you do not want it to be painful in the game, you have to keep the pain out of your practice. As we come to the other side, now we're going to get into side body. So I want to take that palm that was on the floor, we're bringing it off the floor. Forearm is going to come across the top of the head. We're going to inhale into our crocodile breath, letting that back hip drop to the floor. Exhale, we're going to lift that hip up and scoop, and then we're reaching through that elbow, trying to touch the ceiling. Inhale, elbow softens, back hip drops to the floor. Exhale, lift, scoop, lock that back hip in first, Then elevate the elbow, seeing how close to the ceiling can you get. You can also feel that hip, same side hip as the elbow, reaching down through the floor as you're reaching up through that elbow. I want to feel this scoop and this mobility stretch in this back hip as we go through our reach through our side body on this side. Again, we're working on mobilizing hips and spine. We'll bring that hand down to the floor. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. Hand comes off the floor, forearm flush with the ceiling. Inhale, drops that back hip to the floor. Exhale, lifts it up, scoops, locking it in, and then elevate through that elbow like you're trying to touch the ceiling. Inhale, lets it all soften. Exhale, lock that back hip in first, reaching down through the opposite hip as you lift up through that same side elbow. How does it feel on this side compared to the other side? Tightness in these two movements between hips and the low back are going to have a very significant impact on tension in the neck. So this is a very powerful movement to get into and work on. If you find it a difficult movement, then it's one that I would recommend practicing in order to improve it. We'll now switch back to the other side. We're going to get into our folds. With our folds, I want to go ahead and start working side to side. I want to start by reaching through the shin. Both hands reach evenly as we reach. Inhale as we bring it all the way back. Then we're going to transition all the way across to the other side. I want to go ahead and get a little bit of a scoop forward in that back hip so we feel that locked in back hip. And then reaching both hands through the shin. Inhale as it brings us back. You can let that hip drop as you inhale to transition to the other side. Exhale, scoop that back hip, and then nice reach through the shins. Start small, start easy. Make sure this is not painful. If it is painful, then I would want to, we got to reduce our range of motion, make it smaller, or potentially find a different position that we can work these same qualities of these movements without pain. Once we get to about 5 reps on each side, we can start to open up our shin box. So as I move across to the other side, I'm going to start to let that back leg slide and open up. And I'm now less concerned about following the shin. I'm just going to get a nice fold as I exhale, again, making sure it's not painful. Inhale, brings it all the way back. And then opening up that back knee so that it's the same position as the previous side, so that I can get a good comparison. How does each position feel, right side compared to left side? As we go back and forth, nice and slowly, we're going to continue to open up a little bit more each time. The shin box folds, I like to err on the side of more than less. So this is one where we can get 5, 10, up to 20 reps side to side, especially as we continue to change our position throughout. Slowly opening up that back hip more and more to where we would get into what we would consider close to a yoga class pigeon pose. Although at this point, I am less concerned about getting into that end range pose as I am with all the information of what we're learning as far as What is different on the right side compared to the left side? And how can we get those to balance out a little bit more? All right, we're going to come back to our starting point in shin box, and we're going to do one last little neck mobility drill. So I'm in my left side shin box, left palm is grounding down to the floor, spiraling that elbow out and away, feeling that shoulder blade pack down and back. And from here, we're going to do a little bit of just first checking our blind spots. Looking over that left shoulder. Again, I want to have good tension down through that palm. I'm pressing down, spiraling out, lifting the sternum active as I turn and see how close can I get my chin over the edge of my shoulder, going side to side. How does this feel as we look away? We have one shoulder under tension, the other shoulder is not under tension. Notice how that tension difference impacts what it feels like at the level of our neck. We'll do a good 3 to 5 reps. And we're going to go ahead and transition across, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall chest. Again, good tension through this shoulder. My weight is on this shoulder, I'm grounding down. And then same thing, nice turn, checking that blind spot as we exhale, and then going to the other side. Now, with this opposite shoulder under tension, how does that change what you're feeling in your neck? This is a nice assessment because sometimes the tension you feel in your neck might be due to an instability at the shoulder. And this would be a good indication of that. If you have better mobility through your neck when you're loaded through one shoulder than you are in the other shoulder, the question is it a neck problem or is it a shoulder problem? The symptom is in the neck, which makes it feel like a neck problem, but the neck might be stabilizing for something in the shoulder, which would make it a shoulder problem. Now, why is it the shoulder unstable is another question that we have to assess completely separately. But this is an important point of being able to differentiate where are we looking at the problem areas and how are we addressing them. We'll switch back to the other side and we're going to do one more little neck mobility, grounding through that palm, spiraling the elbow, and now we're going to do our light tilt and lift. So keeping that grounded palm, spiraled elbow, the shoulder should be packed. So as we tilt and lift, that side's going to be tighter. The opposite side as we tilt and lift will not be as tight, or it should not be as tight based on the tension patterns in our shoulders. Again, my left shoulder is tight, left side of my neck is tight. After 3 to 5, come back to do the other side. Again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Now, light tilt and lift. And right off the bat, this side feels completely different. So when I was loaded on my left shoulder, left side of my neck, super, super tight. Right side, free as a daisy. When I ground through my right shoulder, my right side does not feel tight. Left side feels tight. So I got an issue through my left side of my neck that is related to that left shoulder. Instability in the shoulder, it might be related to things going on in my left hip, which are generally things related to having 5 knee surgeries on my right knee. So stability being requested of neck and shoulder and hip in order to support an unstable knee could be the reason why I get a lot of neck discomfort and neck pain. Is that a neck problem or is it a knee problem? And to finish up, let's go ahead and come all the way back down to our back. laying on our back. Bring our arms down to our side with the palms up. Let the shoulders softly relax. And we're going to do some nice cleansing crocodile breath. In through the nose, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale out through the mouth as we feel that navel slowly draw down towards the spine. With each inhale, filling up. I want to fill up the abdominal walls like a balloon. I also want to start to fill up the rib cage like a balloon. Feel that breath move up into the chest, out through the side of the ribs, and into the upper back. It's like you're filling up a balloon and filling it up into tension on the inhale. And then on the exhale, you're letting all of that tension melt into the floor. Any stress or tension in the shoulders, any stress or tension in the neck. And let's do a nice, slow 5 to 7 count inhale and exhale. So nice, slow in. And then a nice, slow out. Breathing into tension. And then releasing and letting that tension go on the exhale. One more breath in. One more breath out. And check in with the body. And at this point, I want you to take your time. If you want to have a few more minutes to kind of just sit and breathe, that would be great. Pay attention to make sure you're not dizzy or lightheaded as you get up.